Hello everyone and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. Today we're going to be talking about The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This film is directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed the second, third, and fourth Hunger Games films, and this is a prequel to all of the Hunger Games movies based on the book written by Suzanne Collins. Oddly enough, this review is coming from someone who has not read this particular book, but I do want to point out, I did read the other three Hunger Games before those movies, and then when I heard about this book, I was like, oh, I need to read that, and then I feel like I blinked and the movie was here, so I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. But diving into the movie, start with the synopsis. Coriolanus Snow mentors and develops feelings for the female District 12 tribute during the 10th Hunger Games. Obviously, it's about a lot more than that, but I kind of wanted to keep it vague. This is a solid entry into the Hunger Games franchise. I've only seen it once, but it's easily the third best in the franchise. It might even be the second best. It was quite good. The movie isn't perfect, it does have some flaws, but I now want to break down everything I enjoyed about the film versus what I did not like. Starting with positives, while the movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long, the movie is paced relatively well for most of the runtime. It has a story that's genuinely intriguing, each character has an interesting path and arc, and the movie does a great job with its two lead characters, mainly Snow and Lucy Gray Baird, played by Rachel Zegler and Tom Blyth, both of which are fantastic in the movie. Their chemistry is really great, and Rachel Zegler knocks it out of the park in this movie. I thought she was excellent. Her singing is really good as well. I gotta say though, the standouts in the movies performance-wise were from Viola Davis, Peter Dinklage, and Jason Schwartzman. Jason Schwartzman is so goddamn funny in this movie. Every line he spoke was met with many laughs at my screening. And where the movie really shines isn't even in its typical Hunger Games fare of the actual Hunger Games and, the kids fighting each other and the whole concept of that. It really pulls its weight due to the dynamic between Snow and Lucy Gray Baird and their respective motivations therein. Snow has a personal reason why he needs her to succeed, and you can tell he's actually starting to have feelings for her. She obviously has a reason to succeed considering it's her life on the line, and as their relationship builds, you can also see that equal admiration for him, even though they couldn't be on further sides of the spectrum politically, ideologically in their class. It's a story we've seen told many times, but this did tell it in a very effective way. And with the actual Hunger Games portion of the movie, I really liked this take on it. This takes place during the 10th Hunger Games, so way in the past of this world, and the arena, because of that, is very scarce. It's not the crazy, huge, large arenas that we'd gotten from the previous games that had different, environments and everything. It was kind of just like a big room with the stands in it. It was almost like a converted coliseum. And it was cool to see the dynamic of just trying to make it work within that space. And the movie mostly does a great job of showing Snow's progression from the character we meet in this film to the character that you'll eventually go to know about in the future Hunger Games films. I did feel, however, that while there were areas of dark and light with his character, there is a brief area where it's a mix, where the character is clearly conflicted. And I really wanted to spend a lot more time in that part of the character, but it quickly moves past that. It quickly goes into the new evolution of this character, which was earned in the movie, and the performance is great. But I wanted to spend a little bit more time in that confliction. Leading to one of the few negatives I have of the film is this film is clearly split into 3 separate parts when you watch the movie. I think parts 1 and 2 are outstanding. Everything from the pace to the setups and to the many payoffs you get. I was really fully all in the film in the first 2 parts, and then it gets to the third part. And this third part, while still very good and concludes the story in a satisfying way, it wasn't able to dive into the deep emotional depths that I was hoping we were getting to with the setup of the first 2 parts of the film. And I know that the movie is pushing about 2 hours and 40 minutes. I could have spent another 20 to 30 minutes in the third part of this film, and I think it really could have benefited from that. And like I said, I did not read the book to this film, but Hannah, who I brought with me to the screening, had read the book, and I asked her, because I had this feeling watching it, but I asked her, do you think that they bit themselves in the ass by making Mockingjay into 2 movies when it clearly should not have been 2 movies, that they didn't do that with this movie, and they should have. They should have split it into 2 parts. And she said, as someone who did read the book, she did feel that way, that it could have been split into 2 parts. And I felt that way not even reading the book. I was watching it and thinking, you could have ended the movie here. There's a certain part in part 2 of the film where I'm like, you could end this movie here and then have a sequel picking up where the third part of the movie kind of kicks in, and if you added that additional 30 minutes to 40 minutes I think the movie needed, you could have had 2 films. But I do still think the film works on its own, whereas with Mockingjay, parts 1 and part 2, while they have elements that work, I think overall both movies relatively fall flat. This one doesn't. I just do think it could have benefited from being split. And some of the dialogue was a bit cheesy, just like staying in the negatives for a moment. A lot of the character setups were bought, but when they would speak, I'm just like, I'm not buying it, and it's not really even the actor's fault, it was kind of the dialogue. But that's not the whole movie, thank goodness. It's only just in when the rich, snobby scenes, and you'll know what I mean when you watch it. Ending on a few more positives, there are a lot of fun Easter eggs for Hunger Games fans in the movie, if you watch out for them, both visual and audio. And the set design and the costumes I thought were great, but they've been great throughout all of the films. And the last thing I want to touch on is something that the film does explore a little bit more of than the previous films, is the horror aspect of this world and of this story and what's going on, particularly what they do with the Jabberjays in this film, which apparently, I asked Hannah, apparently it is also in the book. It is gnarly. But with that being said, something that people have talked about with this franchise before is, do you think it could have benefited from being R-rated? You know, do you think it could have gone that route? I definitely think from reading the source material of the first 3 books, you definitely could make an R-rated version of this story. But when they didn't with the first movie, they established that it's going to be a certain type of movie with a certain type of line that it won't cross, and the rest of the movies have followed that, and they do feel cohesive. But there are times in the movie where I do kind of feel like, man, I would have loved to see like some bloody consequences to the things that are going on. But at the same time, they're kids, they want to be 4-quadrant, make money. I get it. Overall, I think this is one really good movie that could have been split into 2 great movies, but regardless, the performances are great, the direction is solid, the tension and the suspense works on practically every level, and this is a solid entry into this franchise. Probably my second or third favorite, as I mentioned earlier, and I highly recommend going to see The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And if you have seen the movie and you're watching this, what did you think about it? Please let me know in the comments, and as always, I'll see you on the next review.